Back in September, I posted a video concerning a rumor about the potential closure of a large B&M dive coaster in China. The ride, simply known as Dive Coaster, operates at Chimelong Paradise in Guangzhou, China. It opened back in 2008 and is easily one of the most recognizable attractions in the country. Those familiar with SheiKra at Busch Gardens Tampa will recognize many of the signature maneuvers of this ride, as it's almost a mirror image. Of B&M's 18 operating dive coasters, this was number 5. It sports those massive 10-across trains and to this day runs extremely smooth, making this one of the most popular rides in the park. And to this day, we've never seen a B&M coaster of this size permanently close. So that immediately raised some eyebrows of why would the park consider removing this ride? In that first video, I described how it really comes down to 2 core points. The first is China's 20-year rule, which for those who are not familiar, is essentially the concept that roller coasters have an expiration date. After about 15 years of operation, the trains need to be fully replaced. After 20 years of operation, the track will need to be fully replaced. And this is actually fully public information that you can typically find in the station for each roller coaster. As a result, many big famous roller coasters in China will have to close after 20 years if the park does not want to fully replace it. An example of this is Crystal Wings at Happy Valley Beijing, a Superman clone layout through this elaborate rockwork and temple theming. The ride opened in 2006, meaning, in theory, 2026 would be its last year. Dive Coaster opened at Chimelong Paradise in 2008, so it still has a couple years left, but it would be nearing the time of when they need to start thinking about what to do with the attraction. In 2023, Chimelong Paradise ranked in the top 25 for most visited theme parks in the entire world, placing in the 21 spot with a visitor attendance of over 5.5 million people. That's more than every park in the entirety of the Six Flags chain. So you would think that they would be able to afford a track replacement. However, from what we've been hearing, Chimelong Paradise has actually been kind of struggling. The most recent TA reports for 2024 do in fact show that, as Chimelong Paradise is no longer in the top 25. In fact, when we look closer, you can see that Chimelong Paradise has dropped to number 18 just for Asian theme parks. They received a huge 26.5% decline from 2023 into 2024, from 5.58 million guests to 4.1. Still a large amount of people, but a jump that size is staggering. Which brings us to the other big reason of why we were hearing that Dive Coaster might be closing. That boiling down to the land that Dive Coaster sits on. Chimelong Paradise exists in a prime location in the city of Guangzhou, one of the most populated cities in the world. The land is very valuable and the government has shown a lot of interest in developing some of it for apartment buildings. We actually saw this as early as 2023 when the park closed their motorbike coaster by Vekoma, a clone of Booster Bike at Toverland. The ride gave its final laps in 2023, and during my visit to the park in 2024, you could see these huge apartment buildings under construction in the exact location where that coaster operated. The government hopes to do the same with the plot of land where Dive Coaster operates, and selling to them would surely give Chimelong Paradise an extra boost financially. Which brings us to the big rumor that we heard back in September, and that was that Dive Coaster would be closing just after Halloween. Well, fast forward to, it's currently December, and Dive Coaster is still here. So what happened? From what we understand, due to the ride's popularity, the operators of Chimelong decided that it was actually in their best benefit to keep the ride around. That's a big win for the park, but it doesn't change the fact that if the government's interested in that plot of land, how do you keep the coaster? The answer comes down to a relocation and the closure of a different roller coaster in the park. Chimelong Paradise has just recently confirmed that their 10 inversion coaster by Intamin, a clone of Colossus at Thorpe Park, is set to permanently close. Now, this should not be too much of a surprise for people, as the ride did first open back in 2006, and as we approach 2026, that means its 20 years are up. On the park's official post, they state the ride will permanently close on December 8th, with work walls going up shortly thereafter to prepare for its removal. The post describes it as demolition, implying it will not be relocated to another property. That being said, an Intamin 10 inversion coaster has appeared on a used rides website and is available for sale, and it appears to be the same one. I have no idea how long that has been available for sale, but if no one is interested in acquiring it, they might be in a position where, they just have to demolish it. With the impending removal of 10 inversion coaster, Chimelong Paradise could, in theory, take down Dive Coaster and relocate it to the back of the park on the same plot of land, freeing up the area that they can sell to the government for apartment buildings, shrinking the size of the park, and keeping their standout roller coaster. And if they move forward with this, it'll be easily one of the largest coaster relocation projects ever done. Which then raises another question. If the ride is going to be torn down and rebuilt elsewhere, how does that affect the 20-year rule? Will they use this opportunity to purchase new track from B&M to extend the ride's life? Or is that even necessary? Should you take down a roller coaster then rebuild it elsewhere, does the 20-year rule reset? The answer to that can seemingly be found with two currently operating roller coasters already in China, Crazy Cobra and Whirly Roller Coaster. Both of these rides operate as relocations from previous parks, well surpassing the 20-year mark of when they initially opened. Crazy Cobra is a premier ride spaghetti bowl launch coaster in the style of Joker's Jinx or Flight of Fear. It first opened at Suzuka Circuit in Japan back in 1998. It was there till 2003 when it reopened as Crazy Cobra in 2006. The ride is now set to permanently close in 2026, 20 years after it opened at Discoveryland. But the ride, in actuality, has been operating for much longer. Whirly Roller Coaster is a Vekoma boomerang that has been operating at Floorland Continent Park since 2015. It also originally opened back in 1998, this one closing in 2010, where it then sat SB&O for 2 years and then resurfaced in 2015. So keeping in mind that its original location was also at another park in China, this ride has been around for 27 years, even after you factor in that it sat SB&O for 2 years and didn't reopen for another 3. That's still 22 years of actual operation, surpassing China's 20-year rule. So unless there's a retracking that we don't know about, seemingly the loophole has been found for how you can keep a roller coaster around much longer after China's strict 20-year mark. Now, from my understanding, this would be the first time that a roller coaster of this age would be moved to a different location in the same park. No idea if that changes anything. But regardless, it seems like Chimelong Paradise's plan is to keep this coaster around much longer than maybe they originally thought. And the ride that we actually should have been paying closer attention to was just across the midway. The park will certainly have to get creative with how they will make Dive Coaster work on that other plot of land, as the attraction sits just a little bit longer and certainly wider than the narrow plot of land occupied by this 10 inversion coaster. But with the removal of some existing foliage, I'm sure it won't be a problem. Regardless, this is a super interesting situation that I'm fascinated to see how theme parks out there are progressing with these restrictions. And if this really is what they end up doing, it'll be wild how many changes will have taken place since my visit in 2024. They've already opened up a new launch coaster named Launch Coaster and have a new Jinma halfpipe on the way replacing their old Intamin halfpipe, which has now been removed. But I hope you found this subject matter as interesting as I did. Even though it's far away on the other side of the world, I love hearing about new theme park developments, especially from major players in the industry. And to this day, the Chimelong Group exists as one of the biggest theme park operators in the world. And from my experience, the parks felt pretty well run too. So if you find yourself in China, I actually do recommend paying them a visit. But let me know down in the comments below what you think of this whole situation involving Chimelong Paradise. And of course, make sure to stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios. And I'll see you next time.